Japanese cruisers get an unfair reputation in this hobby, and that mistake is costing you thousands of dollars. Riders would rather pay triple for an American badge than touch a bulletproof bike that will outlive them, their kids, and probably their grandkids too. Today we are counting down 12 disrespected metric cruisers with exact model years, real market prices, and the specific engineering reasons why each one refuses to die. Cruising sneakily at number 12, Honda Fury. Let us start with the bike that looks like it rolled straight out of a chopper builder's fever dream, except it comes with a factory warranty and Honda reliability sewn into every bolt. The Fury has been in production since 2010, and you can find clean examples today for $5,500 to $7,500 with only 8,000 to 20,000 miles on the clock. Here is why nobody respects it. It is Japanese, it is a factory chopper, and old-school cruiser guys treat factory chopper like an insult. They're lost because under that radically raked-out 38-degree front end sits a completely enclosed, maintenance-free shaft drive paired with digital programmed fuel injection. No chain to adjust, no belt to snap, no carburetor jets to gum up on a bike that sits in the garage all winter. It simply starts, runs clean, and asks nothing of you. Dig a little deeper and the Fury gets even more interesting. Honda pulled the fuel-injected, liquid-cooled 52-degree V-twin straight from the VTX 1300 lineup, which means this is not some untested engine rushed to market to chase a trend. It is a proven, well-documented motor wearing a radically different set of clothes. The single-pin crankshaft still gives you that classic, uneven exhaust cadence cruiser riders crave, but wrapped inside a chassis that is decades newer than anything else on this list, with modern brakes, modern suspension geometry, and none of the sloppy handling you would expect from something this long and low. Against a Harley Softail with a similar silhouette, you are giving up the aftermarket ecosystem and the exhaust note everyone recognizes at a stoplight. That is the honest trade. What you get instead is a drivetrain that will not leave you stranded for half the asking price. Before you buy though, get down on your knees and check the fork seals for weeping fluid. That extreme rake angle puts unusual lateral stress on the front end, and seals wear out faster than you would expect on a bike this new. Fix that early and you have got a bike that will make grown men do a double take at every gas station you stop at. Which brings us to a cruiser built from a drag bike engine that Honda barely even tried to advertise. Imagine standing in front of a bike you want, the seller swearing it's perfect. That's where riders overpay by thousands on a $10,000 bike. Our buyer's kit tells you what it's really worth, your fair price, and when to walk away. A wrong bike costs thousands. This kit, just $49. The easiest money you'll ever save. Scan the QR on the right or tap the link in the description. Let's get that bike you've always wanted for even cheaper. Revving quietly at number 11, Honda Magna 750. In 1994, Honda took the liquid-cooled V4 architecture from their sport bike program and dropped it into a stripped-down muscle cruiser. Clean third-generation Honda Magna 750 models from 1994 through 2003 are floating around today for $2,000 to $3,500, typically showing 20,000 to 40,000 miles. Nobody wants a V4 cruiser. It sounds complicated. It sounds like something that belongs on a racetrack, not cruising Main Street on a Saturday night. But that complexity is exactly why the engine lasts. The 360-degree crankshaft spreads combustion pulses across 4 smaller pistons instead of 2 massive ones, which means dramatically less stress on the wrist pins and crank bearings compared to a big lazy V-twin, doing all the work with half the cylinders. There is also a heritage angle here that gets completely overlooked. This V4 architecture descends directly from Honda's factory endurance racing program. Engines that were designed from the outset to survive 24 straight hours of abuse at full throttle. By the time that same fundamental layout got detuned, liquid-cooled, and dropped into a laid-back cruiser frame, it was operating at a mere fraction of the stress it was originally engineered to handle. Riders who actually understand engines will tell you that a race-descended motor running at half its potential is one of the most durable configurations you can buy at any price point, let alone for $2,000. Compared to a Harley Sportster from the same era, you lose that unmistakable potato exhaust note and the instant parts availability of a bike that has been in continuous production forever. What you gain is a smoother, quicker, more mechanically sophisticated machine for a third of the price. Before you hand over cash, start the engine stone cold and listen closely. A loud slap or rattle from the hydraulic cam chain tensioners is a common wear point, and fixing it means removing the entire engine out of the frame. Walk away from a noisy cold start. Speaking of engines nobody appreciated at the time, the next bike on this list borrowed its motor from one of the fastest production cruisers Yamaha ever built and detuned it into something practically bulletproof. If you are enjoying these forgotten machines getting the respect they deserve, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We dig up bikes like this every single week, and you do not want to miss the next one. Loafing comfortably at number 10, Yamaha Roadstar 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗘𝗥𝗧. Yamaha had a legendary hyperbike engine sitting in the VMAX, and instead of letting it collect dust, they detuned it, dressed it in full touring bodywork, and called it the Roadstar 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗘𝗥𝗧. Production ran from 1997 through 2009, and today they sell for $3,000 to $4,800 with 35,000 to 60,000 miles already on them, which honestly barely dents this engine's lifespan. Riders skip past it because touring cruisers with fake wire wheels and old-school styling do not photograph well for Instagram. Fair enough, but that overbuilt V4 block, pulled straight from a bike designed to chase speed records, is now running at a fraction of the RPM and compression ratio it was engineered for. An engine loafing along under almost zero internal stress simply does not wear out the way a stressed engine does. Yamaha did not just detune the VMAX motor and call it a day either. They reworked the cam profiles, softened the compression ratio, and retuned the fuel delivery specifically to favor low-end torque and long-term durability over outright horsepower. The result is an engine that pulls smoothly from idle, never feels stressed, even fully loaded with a passenger and luggage, and has quietly built a reputation among long-haul touring riders as one of the most dependable big-inch engines Yamaha has ever produced. Owners routinely report crossing 100,000 miles with nothing more than scheduled maintenance. Set against a Harley Road King, you are sacrificing brand cachet and resale value, full stop. What you are buying instead is a genuinely relaxed, genuinely quiet touring machine that will not blink at 6 figures on the odometer. The one thing you actually need to check is underneath the engine, near the rear output shaft boot. A dried out rubber boot will leak final drive gear oil slowly enough that owners miss it for months, and that leak eventually compromises the shaft splines themselves. Inspect it before you buy, not after. And speaking of drivetrains that quietly outlast everything around them, our next entry solved the exact same problem with an entirely different and frankly bizarre engineering trick. Running coolly at number 9, Suzuki Intruder 1400/Boulevard S83. This is the bike that proves Suzuki was thinking about longevity before longevity was cool to market. Built from 1987 all the way through 2009, meaning parts availability and mechanical familiarity span decades. Clean examples run $2,200 to $3,800, usually with 15,000 to 30,000 miles showing. The reason nobody bids on these is simple snobbery. It is not a Vulcan, it is not a Shadow. Most casual buyers cannot even picture it. But Suzuki equipped this engine with twin swirl combustion chambers, alongside an advanced air and oil cooling system, meaning the top end runs noticeably cooler than a traditional air-cooled V-twin doing the same job. Head gasket failures, the classic killer of big air-cooled twins, become a rare occurrence rather than an inevitability. That twin swirl combustion chamber design deserves a moment of appreciation on its own because it was genuinely ahead of its time. Instead of relying purely on displacement and brute compression, the design deliberately shapes airflow inside the combustion chamber to burn fuel more completely and more evenly. That means cooler cylinder head temperatures, cleaner combustion, and noticeably less carbon buildup over the decades compared to a conventional AIR-cooled twin of the same era. It is the kind of quiet, unglamorous engineering nobody puts on a brochure, but it is exactly the sort of detail that separates a 20-year-old engine that still runs strong from one that is limping along on borrowed time. Compared to an equivalent Harley Dyna from the same production window, you are giving up dealer network, support, and a stronger second-hand community. No argument there. But you are getting a cooler-running, longer-lasting engine for roughly a quarter of the price. Here is the check that matters most. Look inside the battery box, which sits underneath the swing arm on this bike, a genuinely odd location. Road debris accumulates there over the years and corrodes the main wiring harness grounds, which can cause sudden and confusing electrical failures down the line. A 5-minute inspection saves you a maddening diagnostic headache later. Next up is a cruiser so quietly refined that Honda basically forgot to tell anyone it existed. Humming smoothly at number 8, Honda Valkyrie GL1500. Honda took the flat-six engine out of the Goldwing, stripped away the touring bodywork, and built an absolute muscle cruiser around it. Produced from 1997 through 2003, clean Valkyries today sell for $3,500 to $5,500, with mileage typically sitting between 40,000 and 75,000, which for this engine is barely a warm-up. Nobody shops for a 6-cylinder cruiser because most riders assume more cylinders means more complexity, means more headaches. The opposite is true here. That horizontally opposed flat-six layout is perfectly primary balanced by design, which cancels out the harsh, destructive secondary vibrations that big displacement 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗧 simply cannot avoid. It is one of the smoothest running cruiser engines ever mass-produced, full stop. Owners of these things will talk your ear off about the 6 individual carburetors hiding under that massive fuel tank, and honestly, they have earned the right to brag. Keeping 6 carburetors in sync sounds like a maintenance nightmare on paper, but in practice, the Valkyrie's bottom end is so fundamentally overbuilt. Borrowed almost directly from a touring platform engineered to cross entire continents without complaint, that the carburetors are usually the only thing an owner ever has to fuss with. The engine itself just keeps spinning smoothly year after year, decade after decade, largely indifferent to how many miles get piled onto it. Against a comparable Harley touring cruiser, you lose the traditional exhaust rumble. People associate with the genre entirely. This thing sounds more like a jet taxiing than a Harley. What you gain is an engine so mechanically balanced it barely vibrates at highway speed. Before buying, ask directly when the timing belts were last replaced and get a receipt if you can. The GL1500 uses an interference engine, meaning a dry, cracked belt that finally snaps will cause severe valve damage instantly. This is not a maybe, it is a certainty, so do not skip it. Our next bike takes that same hide the complexity, keep the reliability philosophy, and applies it to a drag strip bred V-twin nobody expected to last this long. Aging gracefully at number 7, Yamaha Raider 1900. Yamaha built the Raider as a factory custom with a massive 1,854 cubic centimeters engine stuffed into a low, aggressive, stretched out frame. Sold from 2008 through 2017, they currently trade for $5,800 to $8,500 with 12,000 to 30,000 miles on them, still well within the engine's comfortable operating life. People pass on this bike because factory custom sounds like a contradiction, like buying a mass-produced bike pretending to be a one-off. But peek inside that massive engine and you will find ceramic composite plated cylinders paired with forged pistons, a specification you would expect on something far more exotic. That plating dramatically improves heat dissipation and slows ring wear to a crawl over the years, which matters enormously on a big-bore engine working this hard. This same ceramic composite cylinder technology, often marketed under names like 𝗕𝗓𝗄 in the wider automotive world, is the same category of coating you find in high-performance sport bike engines and even some sports cars. Applying that same technology to a laid-back, low-revving cruiser engine is almost overkill in the best possible way. The pistons run cooler, the cylinder walls resist scoring far longer than a traditional cast iron sleeve, and the whole bottom end simply shrugs off the kind of wear that would leave a lesser engine smoking by 80,000 miles. Set against a Harley Fat Boy, you give up decades of factory customization culture and a far deeper aftermarket catalog. What you gain is genuinely premium internal metallurgy at a price that would embarrass most custom shops. The buying check here is a strange one, but it matters. Pull the dipstick and take a real whiff of the oil. If it smells strongly of raw fuel, the fuel pressure regulator is likely leaking gasoline directly into the crankcase, which thins the oil out and severely removes proper lubrication from the engine. Catch it early or walk away entirely. Next, a bike so unloved that most riders cannot even correctly identify it at a bike night. Ticking flawlessly at number 6, Kawasaki Vulcan 1500 Mean Streak. Kawasaki took their proven Vulcan 1500 platform, lowered it, stiffened it, and gave it a genuinely mean street fighter stance. Built from 2002 through 2008, examples today run $3,200 to $4,500 with 18,000 to 35,000 miles, typically on the odometer. This bike is ignored because it does not fit neatly into a category. It is too aggressive to be a traditional cruiser and too heavy to be a proper street fighter, so buyers scroll right past it. Their mistake, because this liquid-cooled SOHC engine uses automatic hydraulic valve lash adjusters, which completely eliminates valve clearance drift over the years. Tight valves that quietly burn out or damage a cylinder head, a genuine concern on most cruisers of this age, simply are not a problem here. That hydraulic valve adjustment system alone would justify a spot on this list because most cruisers of this vintage, and honestly most cruisers being sold brand new today, still require a mechanic to manually pull the valve covers every 10 to 15,000 miles just to measure clearances with a feeler gauge. That is an afternoon of labor and an invoice every single time. On the Mean Streak, engine oil pressure does that job automatically and continuously, meaning the valve train simply never drifts out of spec in the first place. It is one less appointment you will ever need to book. Compared to a Harley night rod with similar low, aggressive styling, you give up brand prestige and that unmistakable American V-twin snarl. What you get instead is a chassis that handles more confidently and an engine that needs less fussing over time. The check on this one is critical and specific. Ask directly whether the plastic oil pump gear, commonly abbreviated as the POG, has been swapped for a steel aftermarket unit. This matters enormously on pre-2004 models, where the factory plastic gear can strip and cause sudden, complete oil pressure loss. It is a cheap fix if caught early, and a very expensive one if ignored. Picture it, you buy the bike, it looked clean, it sounded great. 3 weeks later, the bills start, a worn chain, tired forks, a service the seller never mentioned. That's thousands gone on a bike you already paid full price for. Our inspection checklist catches every one of those before you pay, walking the bike like a mechanic. Spend $49 now or lose thousands later. Scan the QR on the right or tap the link in the description. Don't let a hidden problem drain your wallet. Flexing quietly at number 5, Suzuki Boulevard M109R. Suzuki built the M109R as a direct shot at the muscle cruiser segment, and honestly, it might be the most technically sophisticated engine on this entire list. Produced from 2006 through today, used examples run $5,000 to $7,800 with 15,000 to 30,000 miles, an easy life for an engine this well built. The reason it gets skipped is almost funny. It is too powerful for cruiser purists and too cruiser-styled for the sport bike crowd, so it falls into a gap nobody actively searches for. That is a shame because Suzuki equipped it with double overhead cams paired with their racing-derived dual throttle valve system, meaning internal airflow is managed with genuine precision. The cylinder hot spots that tend to warp typical big-bore cruiser engines over time simply do not develop here. Consider the bore on this engine for a second. At 4.41 inches, the M109R has one of the widest pistons ever fitted to a production motorcycle, cruiser or otherwise, and that number alone used to headline entire ad campaigns when the bike launched. What rarely gets mentioned is how Suzuki engineered around the challenges that comes with using a forged aluminum piston, designed specifically to keep reciprocating mass low, despite the sheer size which reduces stress on the connecting rods and crank every single time that piston changes direction. It is race bike thinking applied to a bike most people assume is just about straight-line bragging rights. Against a Harley V-Rod, arguably its closest spiritual rival, you are giving up a bit of that liquid-cooled Harley cult following. What you are getting is a more technically advanced engine that has consistently proven itself over nearly 2 decades in production. Pay very close attention on your test ride, specifically during hard second gear acceleration. A violent clunk or the bike jumping out of gear is a well-documented issue on abused examples, caused by a bent second gear shift fork. It is not a deal breaker on its own, but it is serious leverage in your negotiation. Next up, a big bore Yamaha that quietly dampens its own vibrations before they ever reach your hands. Settling firmly at number 4, Yamaha Stratoliner / Roadliner 1900. Yamaha built these two nearly identical touring and custom siblings around a massive 1,900 cubic centimeters V-twin sold from 2006 through 2014. Today they trade for $4,200 to $6,200 with 20,000 to 45,000 miles, comfortably mid-life for this engine. Nobody shops for these because the styling sits in an awkward middle ground, not quite retro enough for traditionalists and not quite modern enough for tech-focused buyers. But underneath that indecisive styling is a genuinely clever chassis built around dual counterbalancers running inside a rigid, die-cast aluminum frame. That combination dampens destructive primary engine pulses right at the source before they ever get the chance to vibrate mirrors, bolts, and fasteners loose over the years. Yamaha actually borrowed a lot of that die-cast aluminum frame philosophy from automotive chassis engineering, prioritizing rigidity over the flexible steel tube. Frames most cruisers were built around at the time. A stiffer frame means less flex under hard acceleration and braking, which in turn means less cyclical stress on every single mounting point, bracket, and fastener over the years. Riders who have put serious mileage on these bikes consistently report that things simply do not rattle loose the way they do on more traditionally built cruisers, which is a small detail that adds up enormously over a decade of ownership. Compared to a Harley touring model of similar size, you lose some of that classic mechanical thump you feel through the seat. What you gain is a noticeably smoother ride and a chassis that stays tight and rattle-free far longer. Before buying, get underneath the bike and inspect the X-Up exhaust valve servo linkage. Road grime loves to seize this valve over time, which triggers a permanent check engine light and causes a real, noticeable loss of low-end torque. It is an easy fix if you catch it, and an annoying diagnostic chase if you do not. Our next entry might just be the single toughest cruiser engine on this entire list, and almost nobody remembers it exists. Outlasting everyone at number 3, Yamaha Roadstar Warrior 1700. Before the muscle cruiser craze fully took off, Yamaha quietly built the Roadstar Warrior, and its engine deserves far more respect than it gets. Sold from 2002 through 2009, clean examples today go for $4,000 to $5,800 with a genuinely low 12,000 to 28,000 miles typically showing, since most owners barely rode them. This bike gets ignored because it never built the cult following its rivals did, so it simply fell out of the cultural conversation. Big mistake, because Yamaha built this top end with hardened push rods paired with a performance oil cooling system. Stripping away overhead cams entirely eliminates the timing chains, tensioners, and guides that typically wear down and rattle on cruiser engines as the miles pile up. There is something almost stubbornly old-fashioned about going pushrod on a bike marketed as a performance cruiser, and that is precisely the point. Pushrod valve trains have fundamentally fewer moving parts than an overhead cam design, which means fundamentally fewer components that can wear, stretch, or fail over a long service life. Yamaha paired that mechanical simplicity with genuinely aggressive performance cooling, essentially borrowing the philosophy that made air-cooled Harley engines famous for decades and executing it with noticeably tighter tolerances and better metallurgy. The result is an engine that is dead simple to service and remarkably resistant to the wear, that eventually catches up to more complicated designs. Against a comparable Harley-Davidson Super Glide, you are trading away decades of brand heritage and easy parts sourcing. What you get instead is a pushrod design that is mechanically simpler to service and shockingly durable for its age. Here is a check that is non-negotiable. Shift hard from first gear into second during your test ride. Early 2002 through 2003 models were recalled for a defective second gear wheel and shift fork, and you need to confirm that recall work was actually documented and completed. Skip that check and you could be buying someone else's expensive transmission problem. Next up, the bike that might just be the most over-engineered cruiser Kawasaki has ever put a wheel under. But first of all, quick break to help you make smart financial decisions when it comes to choosing a bike. Imagine walking into a viewing holding all the cards. You know the fair price, you know your opening offer, and you know the exact number where you walk away. That's how you knock hundreds, even thousands off the asking price. Our buyer's kit hands you those numbers for just $49. Negotiate from facts and never overpay again. Scan the QR on the right or tap the link in the description. Right away, knowing you got the best deal. Now let's get back to the video. Overbuilding shamelessly at number 2, Kawasaki Vulcan 2000. Kawasaki basically asked what would happen if they built a cruiser engine with genuinely automotive-grade internals, and the Vulcan 2000 is the wild answer. Produced from 2004 through 2010, used examples run $4,500 to $6,500 with 15,000 to 35,000 miles typically on them. Buyers walk right past it because at over 2,000 cubic centimeters displacement, most assume it is a slow, cumbersome barge that is expensive to insure in a chore to ride. In reality, this engine uses massive 4.6-inch forged pistons paired with equally massive connecting rods, moving at a genuinely low maximum RPM by design, keeping internal friction and mechanical stress. This low is exactly what prevents premature wear over the long haul, and it is a genuinely automotive approach to motorcycle engineering. When it launched, the Vulcan 2000 actually held the title of the largest displacement V-twin ever fitted to a mass-produced motorcycle, a record it held for years before anyone else even attempted to challenge it. Building an engine at that scale meant Kawasaki genuinely could not use standard motorcycle manufacturing tolerances, so they borrowed processes and quality standards typically reserved for automotive engine production. That is not marketing language. That is a documented fact about how this particular motor was designed and built. And it is precisely why examples with genuinely high mileage are still running strong on the used market today. Set against a Harley touring flagship of similar displacement, you give up the badge prestige and the community that comes bundled with it. What you get is an engine built with a level of mechanical over-engineering that most manufacturers simply do not bother with anymore. The check that actually matters here is the drive belt. Inspect its tension and look closely at the rear pulley, teeth for wear. Replacing this massive proprietary belt requires removing the entire outer primary and the swing arm assembly, which turns a routine maintenance item into a genuinely costly repair if it is neglected too long. As overbuilt as this engine is, one bike on this list makes it look almost reasonable by comparison. Next is the last bike on the list, the bike that ties it all together. Reigning silently at number 1, Honda Rune / NRX 1800. And here we are, at the single strangest, most over-engineered cruiser Honda has ever built, and possibly the most over-engineered cruiser any manufacturer has ever built. Produced for only 2 years, 2004 through 2005, in genuinely limited numbers, clean examples. Today sell for $16,000 to $24,000 with a remarkably low 3,000 to 15,000 miles, since most owners treated these as rolling art rather than daily transportation. Yes, this is the priciest bike on the list, and no, it is not for everyone. Most riders assume anything this exotic-looking must be fragile and impossible to maintain. The truth is the exact opposite. Honda seamlessly integrated a 1,832 cubic centimeters fuel-injected boxer engine into a massive rigid structure, mechanically overbuilt to genuinely automotive standards, with every bracket and fitting machined well past what normal structural requirements would demand. The origin story here makes the price tag feel almost reasonable in context. The Rune began life as a concept bike, never actually intended for production, built purely to showcase what Honda's engineers could do with essentially no budget ceiling. Public reaction was so overwhelming that Honda greenlit a limited production run, but crucially, they refused to cut corners to hit a normal cruiser price point. Components that would be stamped steel on any other cruiser are cast, machined, or hand-finished on the Rune. It is less a motorcycle in the traditional sense and more a rolling engineering exercise that happens to also be extremely reliable, which is a genuinely rare combination in this industry. Compared to a top-tier Harley CVO, you are giving up decades of customization culture and a far larger, far more established owner community. What you are getting instead is a genuinely singular piece of engineering that Honda has never attempted to replicate since, at a price that still undercuts most premium American cruisers. The check here requires real patience. Inspect the trailing bottom link front suspension pivots for any play, and look closely for tiny cracks or pitting on the proprietary chrome overlays. Body panels and suspension parts for the Rune are largely discontinued and genuinely difficult to source, so any damage you find is damage you will likely be living with. 12 bikes, 12 engines built with a level of care and over-engineering that the badge on the tank never got credit for. Every single one of them will keep running long after the trendy, chrome-heavy alternative down the street starts nickel and diming its owner. The used market has priced these like leftovers, and that is precisely the opportunity. Click on the next video to continue the ride. Never buy the wrong bike again? Get your guide right now and subscribe to our channel.